Honorable Tan Sri Muhyiddin Haji Muhammad Yassin, Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Governor of Victoria, His Excellency Alex Chernoff, and the Premier of Victoria, the Honorable Ted Bellew.
The World Chinese Economic Forum is aimed at linking the East and the West in a globalized world. On top of that, we hope World Chinese Economic Forum provides a platform for ideas to converge, crystallize, and most important, to put the idea into action. And of course, we hope the East and West can use this platform to learn from each other's experience.
As China emerges as the second largest world economy, there is a need for a platform where Chinese and international business interests converge. And this is where the World Chinese Economic Forum comes into the picture. ASEAN's vision for the World Chinese Economic Forum is to take the forum to the international arena where we can serve as a catalyst for the exchange of economic ideas and enhance business collaborations, thereby contributing to the world economic growth and prosperity. In 2009, ASEAN established the forum, and that year was a great success. And as we forge ahead with WCEF in 2010 and 2011, it was evident that we were achieving our goals, and that's exactly why ASEAN has decided to make this forum an annual international forum, with Melbourne as our launching pad this year.
The WCF promotes the new economic growth triangle, linking China to Southeast Asia, Australia, and India to the Middle East. This is the recreation of the Silk Road, of fostering the new Silk Road. WCF has also established a Global Business Council to promote greater business connectivity and activities.
At World Chinese Economic Forum, we recognize outstanding individuals with good values who make a difference by contributing significantly at the regional and global scale.
I look forward to the fostering of new friendships, the development of new ideas, and into a very healthy interchange of ideas between leaders of many countries, from government, from business, and from academia. Welcome to the 4th World Chinese Economic Forum, continuing here in London on the 12th and 13th of November, a platform for the interchange of new ideas.
第4届世界华人经济论坛欢迎你。
我要衷心的感谢诸位出席第4届世界华人经济论坛。
Thank you. We recognize the traditional owners of the land and the elders past and present. May I now invite Auntie Daika Wurundjeri Elder to do the welcome to country.
Ooh. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to pay my respects to my elders past and present, elders present here today, and elders of different nations that are here today. I'd like to acknowledge the Chairman of the World Chinese Economic Forum, Governor of Victoria, Premier of Victoria, Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, the First Vice Chairman of China Council for the Promotion of International Trade, advisor of WCEF and patron and co-founder of WCEF. Please excuse me for not naming names, but I can't pronounce them all and I didn't want to be disrespectful to anybody. I'm very pleased and honoured to be here today. This is part of the traditional country of my grandmother and mother and ancestors, particularly along here, along the Yarra River, which we call the Birrung Ma, which is the River of Mist. And my family, for many, many thousands of years, lived in harmony with Mother Earth along these rivers. But I wanted to just say a short word really to everyone, because what a wonderful thing to be able to come to Australia and with your economic forum, and basically, you know, you've picked the best state and the best city to come to, I think. Thank you. And while you're all very, very busy people and important persons from across the world, and I do welcome visitors from across the seas, Waminjika, welcome, I'd like to ask each and every one of you, while you are here today and tomorrow, to actually speak to someone who you don't really know, and possibly most of you don't know each other, but we need as a world to respect each other. And while you're here, I'd like to ask you to share a small story of your culture so that we can understand each other and learn about each other, because I firmly believe if we can understand each other, we as a world can live in harmony. And if we can live in harmony, our children can live in peace. And I want that for my grandchildren, to be able to walk the streets without fear of harm. So I'd like to offer you my hand with cultural respect and dignity, in friendship and a symbol of reconciliation, so that we can all walk together. May Bunjil, our Creator, surround you and keep you safe on country. And on behalf of my elders, I say Waminjika, Wurundjeri Balak Yim and Gundi Bik, And that means you're most welcome to the home of Wurundjeri country, and I want to welcome you from the tops of the trees to the roots in the ground, because when you look after the country will look after you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Auntie Daika Wurundjeri Elder, for addressing us this morning. The Right Honourable Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Governor of Victoria, His Excellency Alex Shonoff, the Premier of Victoria, the Honourable Ted Bellew, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, the Patron of the World Chinese Economic Forum, Datuk Sri Dr. Chua Soilek, President of the Malaysian Chinese Association and Advisor to the World Chinese Economic Forum, Major General Michael Jeffrey, former Governor-General of Australia and Chairman of the Global Foundation, His Excellency Dr. Zhang Wei, First Vice Chairman of the China Council for the Promotion of International Trade, Tan Sri Michael Yeo, Chairman of the World Chinese Economic Forum and CEO and Director of ASLI, His Excellency Chen Yunming, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to the Commonwealth of Australia. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, speakers, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, Salam Sejahtera and a very good morning to all of you. 各位尊敬的来宾、大使、女士们、先生们、媒体朋友们，大家早上好。Welcome to the 4th World Chinese Economic Forum with the theme China-Australia-ASEAN Partnerships, Future Unlimited, brought to you by Asian Strategy and Leadership Institute. 女士们、先生们，欢迎大家出席由亚洲策略及领导研究院主办的第4届世界华人经济论坛。Honorable guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin the forum by inviting the chairman of the World Chinese Economic Forum, Tan Sri Michael Yeo, to deliver the introductory speech. Thank you.
Very good morning and welcome. 大家早上好。Governor, Deputy Prime Minister, Premier, former Governor General, Advisor and Patron of the World Chinese Economic Forum, Ambassador of China, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I warmly welcome all participants to the 4th World Chinese Economic Forum convening here in Melbourne today. In particular, I wish to thank the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Honourable Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, for travelling all the way from Kuala Lumpur to be with us here in Melbourne this morning. A special welcome also to the delegates from China, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Indonesia, United States of America, India, Britain, Switzerland, and of course Australia. 欢迎, selamat datang. I must also at the outset thank His Excellency Alex Shonoff, Governor of Victoria, and the Honourable Premier Ted Bellew for taking time off your busy schedules to be with us today. As we meet here today, the world is at a crossroads. The world today, I believe, faces 5 key global challenges, which I will describe as the 5 I challenges. That of inequality in wealth and income, inaccessibility to water, food, and energy, imbalances in global finance and the international economy, instability with rising nationalism and religious and ethnic intolerance, and the need for greater integration, the challenge of being regionally connected and integrated into a global system. These 5 I challenges, I believe, requires 5 I solutions: innovation, investments, infrastructure, institutions, and interdependence. For we are increasingly living in a much more interdependent world. We also faces three key threats. Firstly, the rise of China, and the question that arises, will China's rise remain peaceful and benign and benefit the region? Many economists have predicted that China will become the world's largest economy. Some say by the year 2010, others think that as early as 2017. Second, ASEAN will be tested by a new rebalance of power, nationalism versus regionalism, and a political will to make the ASEAN Economic Community by 2015 a reality. Today, ASEAN-China trade has increased by leaps and bounds, with China emerging to become ASEAN's largest trading partner. ASEAN-China bilateral trade has exceeded US $280 billion. Third, this region of East Asia, China, Southeast Asia, Australia, and India will be the fulcrum of the 21st century global economy, with the prediction that 10 of the world's 50 largest economies by 2015 coming from this region: China, India, Korea, Japan, Australia, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Vietnam. On this note, it is pertinent to note that the East Asia Summit of 18 countries will meet in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, at the end of this week, and that Australia has also recently unveiled its Australia in the Asia Century white paper. Over the next few days, China also had a historic change in political leadership, a peaceful and harmonious transition to a new leadership led by the new Party Secretary General. This year also marks the 40th anniversary of Australia's relations with China. It is because of all these developments and events shaping our future that the World Chinese Economic Forum is becoming more relevant than ever. The World Chinese Economic Forum in Melbourne is a watershed event, bringing together 60 eminent speakers from over 15 countries who are government, business, and thought leaders to share their knowledge, experiences, and perspectives on a wide range of issues facing China and the region. The World Chinese Economic Forum aims to promote international networking, regional bridge building, and linkages between government and business throughout the region. It also brings together the global Chinese diaspora found in over 100 countries. The World Chinese Economic Forum promotes greater connectivity and collaboration, as these will lead to more business opportunities and more trade will create more jobs and lead to higher economic growth. The World Chinese Economic Forum also hopes to build linkages between the West and the East. A lot of effort has been put into organizing the 4th WCEF here in Melbourne. I must thank the Victorian State Government and also the Premier and the Governor for their personal support of this forum. I need to also recognize the support that has been given to us by Mr. Charles Kerwin at the Government House and the staff of Government House for the support given to us over the last few months. We wish to also recognize the active support of the City of Melbourne and the Melbourne Convention and Visitors Bureau for the assistance and advice rendered to us. Thanks also goes to our local organizing committee members, our supporting organizations here in Australia, China, and Malaysia, as well as our strategic partners, corporate sponsors, and media partners. I thank you all for participating and hope that you will have a meaningful and interesting forum over the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, please join me in welcoming the Governor of Victoria, His Excellency Alex Chernoff, to deliver their welcoming remarks.
The Honourable Ted Bodie, Premier Victoria, the Right Honourable Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, Major General Michael Jeffrey, former Governor-General of Australia, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, patron and co-founder of the World Chinese Economic Forum, Tan Sri Dato Michael Yeo, Chairman, World Chinese Economic Forum and Chief Executive Officer of the Asian Strategy and Leadership Institute, Ambassador, Consuls General, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As Governor of Victoria, I extend a very warm welcome to all the delegates to this far-reaching international forum and look forward to the opportunity of meeting all, or at least most of you, at the welcome reception at Government House this evening. I also join in acknowledging the traditional owners or custodians of this land and pay my respects to their elders past and present. The importance of this forum is highlighted by the presence here of many notable speakers, including our Premier, the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia and our former Governor-General. There's little doubt that we are well into the Asian century. Its economic and cultural significance in the world is made quite apparent when its progress in those areas is compared with that of regions which only a short time ago dominated the world, particularly in economic activities, namely Europe and North America. And plainly enough, the driver behind the success of our region has been China itself, and importantly, the Chinese diaspora worldwide. Australia and Victoria, being part of the region, have been fortunate to gain much from such development. It is important that we understand how this has occurred and where it might be going, so we can better be able to assess where our future lies and in what particular areas. That is why this forum is so important, given its focus on these matters, and it provides an opportunity to tap into this global powerhouse and to consolidate existing relationships and alliances and form new ones. This is the first time that this forum has been held out of Malaysia, and the confidence of its organisers in selecting this city to host it is to be commended, if I may say so, and if I may be also bold enough to say, well warranted. Melbourne is, after all, the driver in Australia in many sectors that are of major importance to our economy, such as education, agriculture, aviation, finance, manufacturing and other knowledge-based industries. And on top of that, this city is the multicultural and events capital of our country and has been named by the Economist Intelligence Unit for the second year in a row as the most livable city in the world. Moreover, our relationship with the region and with China and Malaysia in particular is strong and long-standing. In relation to China, for example, it is well known that it is and has been for some time Victoria's major trading partner. There are numerous joint ventures with its institutions in areas of scientific and technical development, healthcare, higher education, tourism and other large-scale economic operations. And only a month or so ago, our Premier led with considerable success a super delegation of 430 companies and 650 delegates to China. It was the largest Australian trade delegation ever to leave our shores, in the course of which, of course, existing relationships were consolidated and new collaborative ventures were formed. In the case of Victoria in particular, the Chinese diaspora has played a significant role in developing our relationship with China. What is perhaps not known is that, that's to say outside of Victoria, is that the relationship with China goes back to the 1840s, when Melbourne, which now has a population of over 4 million, had a population of less than 50,000. The first documented arrival of Chinese was between 1847 and 1853. Some 3,500 Chinese men first came to Victoria, shepherds, rural labourers, chefs and gardeners. With the gold rushes, more Chinese immigrants came here, some to search for gold, others to become traders in Melbourne, and many operated other businesses in goldfields and major towns. And by 1851, Chinatown was founded on Little Bourke Street, and this still remains the longest continuous Chinese settlement in the Western world. By 1857, there were over 25,000 Chinese in Victoria, when the population was only in the order of 130,000, and currently there are over 60,000 Chinese-born persons in Victoria, and well over 200,000 who claim Chinese ancestry. The stoicism of the Chinese immigrants in the 19th century, that was based in part on the belief that hardship contributes to character building, overcame the initial prejudice of the young colony. As a result, the Chinese became very much involved in the commercial activities of Melbourne and significantly contributed to its development. I'll just take a couple of examples. Lo Kong Meng arrived in Australia in 1853, drawn by the goldfields, but he found gold elsewhere. He established in Melbourne a very successful trading and shipping business and became leader not only of the Chinese community here, but also of the commercial progress of the young colony. In 1866, he became one of the founders of the Commercial Bank of Australia, later to become Westpac, now one of the top 5 banks in the OECD. In more recent times, Professor Quan Li Da, a 4th-generation Australian of Chinese origin, became a leading educationalist in Australia and a Vice-Chancellor of the University of Melbourne. In like vein, John So, who was born in Hong Kong, became a very successful businessman in Melbourne and is elected and popular Lord Mayor for a record period of 7 years. It is therefore not surprising that a sister state relationship between Victoria and Jiangsu province of China was established more than 32 years ago. And today, 14 of the Victoria's local councils and regions have formalised connections with Chinese cities and provinces and actively pursue cultural and economic activities of mutual benefit. Malaysia also has a large and expanding diaspora, with thousands of highly educated and skilled Malaysians permanently settling in Victoria and contributing in numerous ways to its development. Particularly in recent times, Malaysia's economy has been growing at a substantial pace, and trade with Victoria has correspondingly increased, especially in agricultural, telecommunication and automotive products. The Australia-Malaysia Free Trade Agreement, liberalised in May this year, has further increased the relationship between us and strengthened the commitment of both countries to achieve a viable economic target. And another strong link that Victoria has with Malaysia, of course, is in higher education. Currently, there are something like 22,000 Malaysian students studying in our country, and about 8,000 of them are in Victoria. The connection with Melbourne, of course, can be traced back to the Colombo Plan of the 1950s, which saw thousands of students from the then developing Malaysia and the region completing their higher education in Australia. And although the Colombo Plan receded in the 1960s in light of the rising local economies, nevertheless large numbers of higher education students from Malaysia continued to come to Australia to complete their education. Victoria has been and is the preferred destination for students from Malaysia. And it is difficult to think of a more effective way of building a sound and long-term relationship than ensuring it encompasses the higher education sector. But it is not all one-way traffic. Victoria has contributed to Malaysia's growth in the higher education sector. A good example is the establishment by Monash University of a university that, through its partnership with Sunway Corporation, it has a medical faculty in Kuala Lumpur, the graduates of which will be able to practice medicine in Australia. And Victoria has like economic, educational and cultural links with many other countries in the region, including India, Singapore and Malaysia. Given those circumstances, it makes sense, I suggest, to stage this forum in Melbourne and there can be no doubt about the benefits that will flow from its deliberations. I trust you will find them productive, and I encourage you to share knowledge, network and develop new and fruitful partnerships. I wish you all a successful forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Alex Chernoff, the Governor of Victoria, for the very welcoming and enlightening speech. Next, I would like to invite the Premier of Victoria, Honourable Ted Vallew, to deliver the opening speech.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Australia. Welcome to Victoria, and in particular, welcome to Melbourne. Melbourne is, as you've heard, officially, and we like to boast a little, the world's most livable city. And this week we're very proud the United Nations Habitat Council has rated Melbourne one of the top 10 cities of prosperity in the world. We agree. In welcoming you all, I particularly want to welcome, of course, the Governor, Alex Chernoff, from whom you have just heard, former Governor-General Michael Jeffrey, the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Right Honourable Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, Dr Craig Emerson, the Minister of Trade and Competitiveness in Australia, who will be with us shortly, the Ambassador, Mr Chen Yuming, from the Republic of China, of course, Dato Salman Ahmad, the Malaysian High Commissioner in Canberra, Sri Dato Dr Michael Yeo, who we have already heard from, who is, of course, the Chief Executive Officer and Chair of this forum, and Dr Zhang Wei, from the China Council for the Promotion of International Trade. Datuk Seri Dr Chua from the forum as well, the President of the Malaysia Chinese Association, and Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, the patron and co-founder of the forum. And I do want to add this by welcoming and acknowledging all of those past and present, including our Indigenous communities, whose love of our land, whose care of our country and whose connection to our state, our city, and indeed this forum and this venue have left us with something we treasure and seek to grow at every opportunity. And there's one other thing about Melbourne which I think you've heard, but I want to stress. This is the multicultural capital of Australia, and indeed we would argue one of the multicultural capitals of the world. We have welcoming arms to the world, and we regard Melbourne as a gateway to the world. And you are, of course, all very welcome. We congratulate those who've chosen Melbourne for the venue for this forum. We are delighted you have done so. There are so many reasons why Melbourne is the right place to hold this forum, particularly for the first time the forum is being held outside Malaysia. You've heard some of those already. The history of Victoria, the history of Melbourne, the Asian community, the Chinese community in particular in Victoria is very rich. And there are nearly 250,000 people in Melbourne now who claim Chinese heritage, and many others from multicultural backgrounds across Asia. And Victoria attracts more of Australia's permanent additions and business migrants from China than any other state. And we are one of the first Australian states to have a sister-state relationship, and you've heard of the many sister-city relationships that we have across Asia and in China in particular. And of course, many Chinese companies feature here in Victoria, companies like ZTE and Huawei and Hisense and CITIC and ChemChina and Qenos and the Bank of China. And there are those strong educational links which the Governor spoke of before, and including, of course, I think Michael's own background here as an alumni of Monash University. We have in this state an enormous opportunity to reach out to the world, and we see this city as a city with opportunities. And of course, the partnership, the Asia-China, Australia-China opportunities in front of us are enormous. The global economy is changing. No one is exempt from that change. There is a shift of focus. And even in China there are changes ahead. But for us here in Australia and here in Victoria particularly, our economy fits with that change. We have a diverse economy in Victoria, and we have what it takes to make that relationship stick. And I say again, there is nowhere better, I believe, to hold this forum than here in Melbourne. Areas such as biotech, advanced materials, development, high-end equipment, manufacturing, IT, agriculture, food and fibre, engineering, urban development services, education, research, professional services, food, beverages. We have that diverse economy here, and I invite you over the course of this forum to consider the opportunities which exist here. And I know there are many people in this room who already invest in Victoria. Like others, we can also learn from China and Asia as we tackle the challenges ahead of us, and we do at every opportunity. And we see this as very much an opportunity for partnership, and I think that's incredibly important. It's multifaceted, it's far-reaching. It's not just about trade, it's about personal relationships, educational relationships, cultural relationships, and even sporting relationships. And I was delighted recently to meet a young man in Dongguan in China who was trying out for Australian rules football here in Australia, Xin Xiaoling. And he won a contest in China to represent a new generation who are trying out for one of our sporting codes here. And then to meet him here as he did his best, it's a symbol of what opportunities lie ahead. Now, there's been much talk in Australia of the Asian century, and there's a white paper which I'm sure many of you have seen and read. But in many ways, this is not the Asian century. It's another Asian century. And indeed, there have been Asian centuries and Asian millennia in the past, and we need to recognise that history, and we certainly need to do. But for us, it's a time for action, not papers and words. It's about building those relationships, and that's what we have been seeking to do through the enormous relationships we already have in Victoria, and through our sister state relationships, our sister city relationships, and the footprint that we have on the ground across Asia and across China, which we are now seeking to expand and have made announcements about that. And indeed, the Governor referred to the trade missions we've run. My first visit overseas as a new Premier was to China, and we've run trade missions to India, to the Middle East, to China and to Japan as well, and we have more planned. And the trade mission to China was an enormous success, 13 cities, and a huge contribution and great results. And as the Deputy Mayor of Dongguan said to us at a dinner for 1,000 people on the last night, he'd never seen so many Australians in the one room. Highly successful trade visit with more than $1 billion of extra exports and trade relationships and direct foreign investment back to Victoria in particular. We're very proud of that trade mission, and we will continue to build on those relationships. Some of those results including the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China opening here, the China Construction Bank opening here, Sichuan Airlines, now direct flights from Chengdu to Melbourne, and in direct engagement with that fast-growing area. And when it comes to foreign investment, we say very clearly, as I've said right across Asia and in China, we welcome foreign investment in Victoria, and we welcome all investment, particularly Chinese investment. We are proud of the investment that already occurs in this state, and indeed this state, through its history, its culture and all its trade relationships, was built on foreign investment. We welcome that investment with open arms. Our approach to China is one which we share with our approach to Southeast Asia and to the broad Asian community. It is one of engagement, growth, development, education, cultural, trade, personal and historic. And we launched a China strategy, we launched a China tourism strategy on our mission recently. We're building those relationships right across the spectrum of all of those areas. And we're also introducing an immersion program in Jiangsu province, our sister state, with Year 9 students from Victoria having an opportunity to study it in Jiangsu. And new Chinese language courses here in Victoria which will encourage greater take-up of Mandarin in particular. Hamer scholarships named after former Premier who settled the sister state relationships some 33 years ago, so that students can study in China, from Victoria can study in China and in the other way around. And we have a number of leadership programs in the same regard, supporting those relationships. We're engaging with China, we're engaging with Asia at every opportunity. And we start, I believe, from a position of strength. We have a competitive advantage in this state, being at the centre of the transport network, with our multicultural base, our reputation for world-class research and development, our clean, green production of food and fibre, and our abundant and efficient energy, especially our coal resources, and our track record of welcoming foreign investment. We are also the sports and arts capital of Australia, and we're very proud about that, and we have, of course, that rich, diverse, multicultural base. There's no better place to host this forum, there's no more important forum to be conducted than a forum focused on building this relationship. We hope this forum leads to a continuing relationship with Victoria and Melbourne in particular, and we wish everybody participating in this forum well. I do have one word of warning to you all, and also an extra welcome. Should you find yourself over the next few days so enamoured with Melbourne and Victoria you wish to stay forever, you are welcome, and we will make you even more welcome. Thank you very much. Enjoy the forum, enjoy this opportunity. Melbourne welcomes you all, and we welcome this relationship.
Thank you very much, Honourable Tat Bellew. As Parliament is in sitting today, the Premier will be leaving us shortly. In this regard, there is a slight change in the order of the speeches this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, please join me in welcoming the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Right Honourable Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, to deliver the special keynote address. Please welcome Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you. Excellency Alex Chernoff, Governor of Victoria, Right Honourable Tat Bellew, Premier of Victoria, His Excellency Zhang Wei, First Vice Chairman, China Council for Promotion of International Trade, Major General Michael Jeffrey, the Chairman of the Global Foundation, and former Governor General of Victoria, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, patron and co-founder of WCEF, Tan Sri Dr. Michael Yeo, the Chairman of WCEF and CEO of ASLI, Yang Bahagia Dato' Sri Dr. Chua Sorlek, advisor of WCEF, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to also extend my warm welcome to all of you to the 4th World Chinese Economic Forum. I wish to express my heartiest congratulations to the lead organizer, the Asian Strategy and Leadership Institute, ASLI, and the supporting organizations for holding this timely forum here in this beautiful city of Melbourne. Thank you also to the State Government of Victoria and the Australian Federal Government for supporting this forum and for the hospitality extended to all of us. I'm, of course, glad to be back here again in Australia, and of course, it is an honor to address all of you here today, this morning. This year's World Chinese Economic Forum evidently promises to be once again a platform for dynamic discussion of the most relevant issues facing the development of economic linkages between China, its neighbors, and its economic partners. I anticipate a lively dialogue over the next 2 days, and I feel privileged to be representing Malaysia in this very exciting program. The theme of this year's forum, China, Australia, ASEAN Partnership, Future Unlimited, is apt as it reflects the eastward shift of the world economic center of gravity. ASEAN has free trade agreements with both Australia and China, and officials around the region are working very hard to secure more high-quality trade deals via the Trans-Pacific Partnership TPP agreement and the proposed Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. This top-down approach demonstrates the role of governments to foster private sector trade and investments across borders by reducing barriers. Australia is already intimately networked into regional economy with China and ASEAN. Just 2 weeks ago, the country published a white paper called Australia in the Asian Century that reaffirms Australia's future economic and foreign policy directions with Asia by becoming a competitive regional partner through skills development, innovation, infrastructure, fiscal system, regulatory reform, and sustainability. I have read it with great interest, and I look forward to enhancing our successful relationship for regional benefit. Speaking of regional benefit, ASEAN is gearing up for a well-connected region with free flow of goods and services and labor in less than 3 years. The ASEAN Economic Community, the AEC 2015, our most ambitious plan yet, will bring many challenges, but ultimately, collective benefits will prevail in the long run. The AEC 2015 will not be possible without existing institutions such as the East Asia Summit, Master Plan on ASEAN Connectivity, and many others. As these initiatives are mostly held and promoted at the highest level, the realization of AEC 2015 must also be people-centered in order to ensure that each layer of the ASEAN society is geared towards this regional objective. The AEC 2015 cannot exist without a growing relationships and sense of interdependency amongst its members. This economic relationship within the region is still growing despite decelerating economic growth of two of the world's largest buyers, the United States and the European Union. Malaysia recorded a second quarter gross domestic product growth of 5.4%, a figure that is well above general expectations. For the first 8 months of this year, Malaysia's global trade grew by 4.2% to 868.8 billion ringgit compared to the same period a year ago. Of this trade with ASEAN, member countries grew by 7.7% to 236.57 billion, and trade with China increased by 10.5% to 118.71 billion, and trade with Australia lead with a higher percentage of 17.5% to 29.15 billion ringgit. And of course, Australia is Malaysia's 10th largest trading partner, while China is our biggest. Ladies and gentlemen, the economic uncertainty that is facing the world today affects every country in the world. It is an unfortunate turn of event where we should take lessons from it, lest we found ourselves in a similar situation again. So what are the trends that we can see during the 2008 financial crisis? I can mention here two groups of business community that seem to be better insulated against the financial manipulations that lead to the 2008 economic crisis. One of them is the group of businesses that adhere to halal business practices, such as those found in Malaysia. And these businesses will only invest in Sharia-compliant activities that exclude speculations and trading of non-tangible assets. And therefore, there will be no direct exposure to innovative financial assets, such as collateralized debt obligations or CDO. In other words, Islam spells out rules and guidelines in trade and investments to keep businesses safe. The other group of businesses that's also very well insulated are the Chinese or overseas Chinese-led business entities, especially the more established or tightly held ones. As far as I know, there are no written rules governing business practices among them, yet there seems to be an invisible boundary that defines the conducts of Chinese business people. There are a lot of business norms that fall into this category, which I find it well represented by this phrase, and I quote, "A gentleman makes money in the right way and uses it with consideration." I think Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew can sort of translate that in Mandarin. And this simple phrase embodies the values and business ethics such as fairness, responsibilities, and most important of all is trustworthiness. And therefore it is these values and ethics that made financial wizardry unattractive to the Chinese. It is not a secret. The Chinese-owned businesses have better access to credits, and in fact, in most cases, the cost of funding, as they say, is much lower than others. This is applied not only to suppliers, but even to banks and other financial institutions. Some who don't understand economics will call such practices as anti-competitions and discriminations. The reality is, trust is a bankable trade, especially trust among Chinese businesses. It is well known that a handshake between two Chinese businessmen is as good as a contract. And this is because any breach of trust is frowned upon by the community. And due to the close-knit nature of this community, reputation spread fast. Trustworthy will be welcomed. A rich man with questionable integrity will be shunned. And this is an advantage of the Chinese business community. The wonderful thing about this trustworthiness is it transcends national boundaries. A Chinese businessman in mainland China and an overseas Chinese businessman from anywhere in the world will share the same values in business and in trade. Ladies and gentlemen, having said that, I would like to say that China has proven to successfully transform its strategic economic centers with incredible growth over the last several decades. China's fiscal decentralizations and development policies have turned the country's Tier 1 cities into big megapolises with living standards similar to their of affluent countries, and the prosperity has spilled over to second-tier and third-tier Chinese cities. As such, we should all look beyond China's Tier 1 cities. Today, most of China's cosmopolises, including that of Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, are maturing fast. On the other hand, there are more than 80 cities in China with a population of at least 1 million people. And these cities will surely present greater business opportunities with good purchasing power. Although the demographic components of these cities differ from one another, I'm certain that Chinese business community worldwide will be able to serve each market with its specific needs and wants. Malaysia's strength lies in its diversity. As a multi-ethnic and multi-religious country, the Malaysian business community is able to capitalize a wide range of opportunities in China. On top of the potential market segments, the Malaysian business community can also explore the untapped Chinese hinterland markets, especially in tourism and halal industries. Recent statistics show that Malaysia's halal export accounted for 5.1% of the total global export. And I believe that the country's huge halal industry is able to cater the 20 million Muslims in China. Strategic alliances with provinces such as Xinjiang, Gansu, and Ningxia will also allows us to not only penetrate these big halal markets, but also those of Muslim-majority countries neighboring China. In Malaysia, of course, we are blessed. Some 24% of 7 million of Malaysians are ethnic Chinese. They speak, of course, they could speak Mandarin, Hokkien, Cantonese, Hakka, Teochew, Fuzhou, and, of course, many other dialects. Malaysia, of course, is the only country outside China with a complete Mandarin education system available to its population, from preschool right up to university level. In fact, there are also many Malaysians of non-Chinese background who studies in Mandarin schools. And that means that we have a good link with the Chinese world of some 50 million overseas Chinese and over 1.3 billion Chinese nationals. Apart from the ability to converse and understand, there are many extensive business connections in trade and investment as a result of the substantial Chinese population in Malaysia. I'm sure that all my friends here today recognizes the name Robert Kwok as one of the most famous Malaysian sons. His business empire spans beyond Southeast Asia and China. And the good news is he is just one of the thousands of Malaysian Chinese that has succeeded in Malaysia and went on to build businesses overseas. Now, Malaysia is also playing host to a lot of Chinese business leaders from China, from Thailand, Indonesia, USA, Singapore, Philippines, Australia, and many other parts of the world. They came to Malaysia to do business not only with Malaysian Chinese, but with all Malaysians that understands Chinese business ethics and values. Now, many of these businesses use Malaysia as a platform to launch their products and services into other English-speaking markets, India and Middle East, because of our multilingual populations and cultural connections with many parts of the world. Even non-businesses or businessmen come to Malaysia for holidays because it is so easy to communicate with many Malaysians. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is an advantage having a strong link with overseas Chinese all over the world. Most people look at the overseas Chinese as the link to China, but miss the equally important link between overseas Chinese in other countries. This important is most prominent among ASEAN countries, which is the home to over 60% of the overseas Chinese population. Our histories have shown that even before formal state relationships are established, trade among overseas Chinese populations are already thriving in all instances. In the old days, any Chinese that is new to a place can walk into any Chinatown and get help in finding shelter, jobs, and even access to credit. In this modern day and age, people don't walk into Chinatown searching for jobs anymore. Instead, they walk into one of the many Chinese Chamber of Commerce, looking for businesses, contacts, and of course, opportunities. Australia, on the other hand, is geographically close to ASEAN and China. Australia has a substantial population of Australian Chinese. So naturally, Australia is well positioned to grow together with ASEAN and China. We have different natural resources, skills, technologies, and of course, wealth. Trade and investments amongst us will allocate the resources to where it is needed most at prices that are competitive. Yet the market needs information to work efficiently. This is where you, ladies and gentlemen, have an edge. The networking that have existed and the new network that will be established in the next few days will be your access points to vast amounts of market information that is helpful to your business. I've spoken to a few of you about the opportunities in Australia, and there are some very striking examples. Firstly, this country is almost a continent by itself, or it is a continent. The mineral deposits are huge and mostly untapped. Australian education is among the best in the world, and therefore its human capitals are well sought after. Natural resources are some of the most pristine, and the list goes on and on. So what is important now is for us to get into the details and explore the opportunities available. And the best way to do this is, of course, to work with an Australian partner. Once you get the business up and running, then look towards ASEAN and China to market your offerings, and from there to the rest of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many FTAs now connecting us from bilaterals to multilaterals. The framework for cooperation is already there. What we need now is to make use of the provisions and take advantage of the concessions available. The Malaysian government, of course, is actively pursuing strategic economic alliances with targeted countries with a view to expand and liberalize its small domestic market. At present, Malaysia has 6 bilateral free trade agreements and 6 plurilateral FTAs with ASEAN. And earlier this year, governments of Malaysia and Australia concluded a bilateral FTA which will come into force in January next year. And similar trade arrangements are being negotiated with the European Union, the TPP, and Turkey. At the same time, Track 2 processes and private sector-led initiatives continue to provide an alternative avenues in finding new ventures. Track 2 conferences, just as the one we have today, are a useful source of advice to governments. This is where new ideas are generated, old ideas are polished, and controversial and sensitive issues are highlighted with a greater sense of direction. Key takeaways from Track 2 forums will be further refined by governments as alternative strategies. I have read the conference report of the previous World Chinese Economic Forum, and I must commend the organizers for putting together such a brilliant conferences. I believe the topics which will be discussed in the next 2 days are indeed questions that demand answers from key stakeholders of the economy, including the Malaysian Chinese business community. Now, since independence, the Malaysian Chinese business community has played a very important role in the economy and nation building. Many of them have started as family-run businesses that then expanded throughout the country to become the legion of successful small and medium enterprises and big conglomerates that we see today. Their presence in every sector, from primary commodities to manufacturing and services industries, they are resilient to economic downturns due to their quick response to challenges and adoptions of new knowledge and skills. And today, many of them are diversifying their investments abroad and eager to look at new international ventures and alliances. Since the introductions of the new economic policy in Malaysia in 1970, Malaysian Chinese business community has continuously worked in concert with other races for mutual prosperity. The sheer commitment to the national agenda has contributed greatly to the eradication of hardcore poverty, addressing income disparity, and fostering national unity. Be that as it may, our work should not stop here. As I mentioned earlier, there is a reason behind Malaysia's success in defying the gravity of the ongoing global economic downturn. In tandem with the sound macroeconomic policies, Malaysia's economic, governmental, and political transformation programs have yielded positive results in driving domestic consumption investment activities. Recently, Malaysia is ranked 12th most competitive economy in the World Bank's Doing Business of 2013 report. Under the helm of our Prime Minister, Dr. Sri Najib Tun Razak, Malaysia is stepping out on our comfort zone to realize a bigger Malaysian dream, a high-income nation status that is both sustainable and inclusive, irrespective of race, religion, and geographical identities. The Malaysian government acknowledges that our previous growth model was not sustainable and cannot propel us to be a high-income nation by 2020. In the early years of independence, poverty eradication and bridging income disparity were our topmost priority. During the 1980s and 1990s, Malaysia's growth model switched from the export of primary commodities to manufactured products, and as a result, our growth rates were stable and high at around 8 to 9% for over a decade. However, since 1997 Asian financial crisis, the country's overdependence on low-value manufacturing activities and low-skilled labor has restrained costs and wages, and thus leading us to the current economic income trap. And in order to climb out of this trap, government has introduced a new economic model as a response to the problems and also as a nudge Malaysians that doing business is not and should not be the same way any longer. The government's transformation agenda has made Malaysia a much better market to trade with and invest in than ever before. As we climb up the value chain and technological ladder, Malaysia invites investors from all places, especially the Chinese business community around the world, to take advantage of our transformation process as a springboard to other bigger markets. The conclusion of the ongoing TPP negotiations, for example, will allow us to have a direct trade and investment access to 10 other participating countries around the Pacific region, including the United States, and in addition, seeing that China is irrepressible nature towards high-income status, Malaysia is positioning itself as China's complementary market to burnish its attraction as an investment destination. Ladies and gentlemen, governments are encouraged to find new approaches to enhance the stakeholders' consultation process with the aim of strengthening our economic resilience and deepening people-to-people connectivity. This has to be implemented in 4 levels, namely regional, sub-regional, state or provincial, and local community. We must place greater emphasis on mainstreaming elements of human security, sustainability, and inclusivity in our policy formulation. And in this undertaking, this business community, including Chinese business community, can complement government efforts to pull in marginalized pockets of society to participate in the fruitful economic life. There is a lot to say about the topic of China, and it is virtually impossible for me to mention everything in this speech. But before I conclude, allow me to say that China has become a global power, economically and many other ways. It will continue to grow in stature and eminence, and as such, we look forward to continue our fair, equitable, and amicable engagement with China. Issues such as the overlapping claims of South China Sea, US-China and China-Japan relations are concerned that must not be allowed to detract us from the core business at hand. A region of peace and stability is a must in order to lead us to a prosperous and peaceful future for the region. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, I wish to thank ASEAN once again for being the lead organizer of the 4th World Chinese Economic Forum. Let me also thank the Australian government and the state government of Victoria for their hospitality and assistance rendered to all of us. A special thank you also to the international delegates, sponsors, and supporting organizations. Thank you. 谢谢.
Thank you very much, Yang Amat Berhormat Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia. As the Premier of Victoria, Honourable Ted Bellew, has to soon take leave, may I now invite our patron, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, to present a memento to the Premier of Victoria.
Oh, you're doing a presentation, right.
Thank you. Announcing the departure of the Premier of Victoria, Honourable Ted Bellew. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. And now, please join me once again in welcoming Major General Michael Jeffrey, the former Governor-General of Australia and Chairman of the Global Foundation, to deliver his remarks.
To the Governor of Victoria, to the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, to the Chief Executive Officer of the Asia Strategy and Leadership Institute, to the First Vice Chairman of the China Council for Promotion of International Trade, to distinguished guests all, ladies and gentlemen, it really is a tremendous pleasure to welcome you all this morning. I'm a little bit worried though about the Premier of Victoria. I suspect he might have some immigration people outside with forms for you to sign to become Australian citizens immediately and return to Victoria to be permanent investors and trade delegates within this state. But I hope some of you certainly return for more visits later on. Thank you very much to Dr. Michael Yeo. I congratulate you as Chairman of the World Chinese Economic Forum for your magnificent effort in bringing such an important international event to Australia and to this beautiful city of Melbourne. As Chairman of the Global Foundation, which is a citizens' organisation based here in Melbourne but operates globally, I'd also like to extend my appreciation to His Excellency Mr Alex Chernoff, the Governor of Victoria, and to the Honourable Ted Bellew, Premier of Victoria, for ensuring that this forum could be hosted here in Melbourne and also for agreeing to address it. I'd also like to extend the warmest of welcomes to the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Honourable Tan Sri Muhyiddin Haji Muhammad Yassin. Australia and Malaysia, sir, have enjoyed many years of very close cooperation, and no more so than in the field of education, which had as its genesis the highly successful Colombo Plan. And as we were speaking earlier this morning, I had the great pleasure of serving as a young officer in your country in the early 60s in the beautiful and historic city of Malacca. And I think Tun Abdul Rahman was the Prime Minister at the time, and Dr. Razak was the Deputy at the time. Could I also congratulate Malaysia for its inspired initiative in establishing the World Chinese Economic Forum and on bringing to Australia the Chinese diaspora from our region to engage in a conversation about how Australia, Southeast Asia, China and India might better work together to promote economic cooperation. We at the Global Foundation are dedicated to this type of integration between Australia and Asia, and for the 15 years of our existence we've been promoting dialogues throughout the region that involve many of the organisations and institutions represented here today. In particular, we have brought focus to the notion of Australia and Asia working together on the critical area of food security and the greening of our cities. The latter has particular relevance for China in its huge challenge to urbanise 350 million of its citizens over the next 20 years. It was thus a special privilege about a year ago for for me to lead a Global Foundation delegation to China, where we had the privilege of working directly with the Vice Chairman of China's National Development and Reform Commission on a program to assist China in this important endeavour. And that work, I'm pleased to say, continues. This process of increasing urbanisation, of the changing consumer patterns of expanding middle classes, is happening right across Asia. And whilst it has its problems, it also provides very good economic opportunities for those involved in the business, environmental, services and even agricultural industries. Together they, and I would surely suggest, they must help to transform huge urban hotspot complexes of concrete, glass and asphalt into environmentally friendly and socially pleasant places of living. Let me signal, however, a note of caution linked to immense possibility. Our planet has roughly 14 million hectares of land not covered by water. That is 2 hectares for every person on it. One of those hectares is no longer usable. This leaves 1 hectare per person today to meet that person's total food, water, energy and living requirements on a sustainable basis. By 2050, this will be nearly 1.5 people sharing that 1 hectare. The fundamental question is whether that 1 hectare can firstly meet the basic requirements of food, water, shelter and clothing, and then secondly, the perfectly understandable aspirational requirements of billions of rural and urban poor to have, for example, a motor car, a larger air-conditioned house for their children to go to universities and so on. Of particular concern is the food security issue, in which the globe has to almost double its food production capacity by 2050 to feed a projected 9 to 10 billion people, when arable land in many of our countries is decreasing at about 1% per year, where soil fertility is decreasing, where farming input costs of fertiliser and fuel are increasing, and most concerning of all, where there will be huge deficiencies in water availability, due mainly to aquifer depletion and major river degradation. Food security, I would suggest, ladies and gentlemen, poses huge potential economic, social and security issues in which this forum, I am sure, will become increasingly involved. But it could also involve considerable opportunity in research, investment and trade. It's timely, therefore, that the Australian Government, through Prime Minister Julia Gillard, has recently released a major white paper entitled Australia in the Asian Century, which suggests how Australia might better connect with the region, including inputting into the identification and resolution of resource availability issues, as well as being joint beneficiaries in the implementation of agreed solutions. I think it's very fair to say that over the years, Australia has provided much expertise and know-how to Asia in such areas as training, health, governance, agriculture and education through various assistance and developmental programs. It's also true to say we have huge export markets in the region in energy, mining and food. But we believe we can and must do better to meet these new challenges and opportunities by encouraging higher levels of investment through regular political dialogue, better partnering, more focused joint research and closer collaboration. The great challenge for Australia is how to better adapt to the new Asia, and we are looking forward to your contribution through this forum on how you see us doing this. I spoke earlier of my concerns on the sustainability of the planet, given current and projected rates of consumption. At Global, we're attempting to address this issue by hopefully involving the participation of the G20, the group of 20 nations of which Australia is a member, along with India, Indonesia, China, Japan and South Korea. Australia will participate in the 2013 G20 in Russia, then hosted in Brisbane in 2014, followed after Brisbane by Turkey, and then back again to Asia. We see a wonderful opportunity for the Asian members of the G20, supported, I would suggest, by this forum, to take a leadership position in helping to shape the global agenda on the sustainable planet issue. A sustainable planet will continue to be a priority for the global organisation as we work with you and others around the world on a series of dialogues and discussions which bring together business people, academia, research colleagues and policy makers to help governments shape the appropriate agenda. We at the Global Foundation are grateful for the support of the private sector, and we believe that it can provide much of the essential leadership and investment to work with governments and institutions to find proven leading practice solutions to a sustainable future that involves not just good policy but makes sound business sense. Too often, in my experience, we put problems to long and expensive studies when good solutions that are readily extrapolable already exist if we look for them. In conclusion, there's no doubt that, ladies and gentlemen, we live in challenging times. The global financial crisis, climate change, the so-called Arab Dawn, ideological fanaticism, and resource availability and distribution issues are indeed testament to this. But the human mind and spirit can and must arise above all these things to work, as this forum is doing, for a better, happier and more sustainable planet. I wish the forum well, and I hope that your stay in this state and this country meets up to all of your expectations. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Major General Michael Jeffrey, for your remarks. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, you may want to use the earphones for English translation, as the following speech will now be delivered in Mandarin. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming His Excellency Dr. Zhang Wei, First Vice Chairman of the China Council for the Promotion of International Trade.
尊敬的亚洲战略与领导力研究院首席执行官姚元庆阁下，澳大利亚维多利亚省总督阿莱克斯·钱多夫阁下，马来西亚副总理阁下，还有我的老朋友李金友阁下和我们蔡冠森博士，女士们、先生们，非常高兴出席第4届世界华人经济论坛，并与世界各国经济界的华人企业家代表汇聚一堂，共同就中国与世界经济的发展和融合等大家共同关心的议题来进行探讨。首先，我代表中国国际贸易促进委员会对本次论坛的召开表示热烈的祝贺，对亚洲战略与领导力研究院杨元庆首席执行官以及他的同事们为此次论坛所做出的艰苦工作和精心的安排表示衷心的感谢。今天的世界仍在经历着金融危机的煎熬，以发展中国家和发达国家 GDP 所占的比重来看，从2010年开始，双方的 GDP 几乎相当。这意味着战后在发达、不发达、南北差异基础上建立的世界经济秩序，包括金融秩序、货币秩序，都受到了严重的挑战。新的经济秩序的形成，对于我们研究和解决全球经济不平衡的问题具有重要的意义。毫无疑问，中国最重要的事情是保持自身的社会稳定，持续的体制改革和演变， 不断解决自身社会经济发展的各种问题，竭尽全力来保障中华文明复兴进程的持续推进。在这个前提下，中国在新的世界格局当中，可以也应该履行以下3个职责：世界政治经济的稳定者，国际秩序改革的推动者，以及发展中国家未来发展的探索者。一是世界政治经济的稳定器。中国的发展在很大程度上得益于现行的国际经济政治秩序，因此中国有充分的理由，也应当尽最大的努力来保持现行体制的相对稳定性。任何过快、过于激进的改革和变更对中国的发展都不利。中国自身相对较快平稳的经济发展，毫无疑问是发挥稳定器作用的根本所在。中国调整经济结构的举措是对当今世界稳定的一个重要贡献。这是因为中国经济结构调整最重要的体现是减少外贸顺差，扩大内需，这有助于促进全球经济的再平衡，为世界各国的发展提供广阔的机遇。危机前的2007年，中国的贸易顺差高达3007亿美元，占全部 GDP 的8.8%。经过几年多的调整，贸易顺差占 GDP 的比例降到了2011年的2.5%， 2012年将持续下降，极有可能降到1.3%以下。此外，由于中国实行发展方式的转变，经济增长将由投资和出口驱动型向消费驱动型转变，中国的国内市场将会迅速扩大，由此带来的中国进口总规模的增长，据预计未来5年中国进口的总规模将会达到12万亿美元，这对全球经济将会成为一个重要的拉动力量。中国对外贸易的发展为贸易伙伴提供了广阔的市场。目前，中国已经是日本、韩国、澳大利亚、东盟、巴西、南非等国家第1大出口市场，是欧盟的第2大出口市场，是美国和印度的第3大出口市场。中国是对不发达国家开放市场程度最大的发展中国家。截至2011年7月，中国已经对36个已经建交最不发达国家原产的4700多个税目商品实施了进口零关税，约占全部税则税目的60%。中国政府已承诺将继续扩大对已建交最不发达国家的给汇范围，使实施零关税商品达到全部税则税目的97%。零关税措施促进了这些国家对中国的出口。通过加快对国外的投资，能够帮助投资对象国扩大就业，促进经济的复苏。2011年，中国非金融类的对外直接投资是686亿美元，同比增长了14%。境外企业实现销售收入10448亿美元，境内投资者通过境外企业实现的进出口额1845亿美元，同比增长了35%。2011年，境外企业向投资所在国交纳的各种税金总额也超过了220亿美元。年末，境外企业就业人数达到了122万人，其中雇佣外方员工88.8万人，来自发达国家的雇员有10万多人。二是国际 秩序改革的推动者。当前最为紧要的一项是国际货币体系的改革。国际货币体系应当向稳定、可预期性、多元化方向来改革。为此，所有各方应努力地凝聚以下3点共识：第一，现行国际货币体系必须进行结构性的改革，改革方案的设计应以有利于解决世界经济中深层次不平衡为出发点。主要国际储备货币的选择应考虑全球的经济结构以及国际贸易和投资的状况，同时要在治理结构、制度安排、组织体系等方面做出积极的调整，打破现有的路径和依赖。第二，改革应当体现包容性。当前世界经济格局正在发生深刻的变化，国际货币体系改革必须综合考虑和均衡兼顾不同利益诉求，以新兴经济体为代表的发展中国家的快速发展，以及他们为世界经济做出的越来越重要的贡献，应当在新的国际货币体系中得以体现。第三，坚持循序渐进的原则。今后一段时期，美元作为主要储备货币的地位不会发生根本性的变化，改革进程中应保持必要的灵活性，也不排除一些地区根据本地区实际情况和需要，采取区域性的货币机制和安排，来推进改革与保持经济增长并行不悖。三是发展中国家未来发展的探路者。中国是一个人均资源匮乏的国家，是一个人口众多、社会庞大的社会体。中国如何在这样的一个条件下探索出一条对环境友好的低碳发展道路，是许多发展中国家极为关注的。如果中国能够在这些方面取得成绩，无疑也将会为发展中国家带来一些富益。同时，中国作为一个巨大的社会体，面临着极其复杂的社会矛盾，比如超大型城市的管理，包括交通问题、住房问题、医疗问题、退休养老制度等等，都是在这之前前所没有遇到过的一些挑战。中国如果能在社会管理方面找到一条平衡公众秩序与个人自由比较有效的管理体制，也会对后来者提供启示，具有感召力。对于一些发达国家，如欧洲的大陆国家，中国的探索也会有一定的借鉴意义。女士们、先生们，中国经济的发展与全世界华人的努力奋斗是紧密相连的。中国整体经济实力的不断提升，为各国华人经济界开拓业务、谋求发展提供了更加广阔的空间和更多的机遇。华人经济论坛为我们提供了交流的平台，让我们抓住机遇，携手合作，共同为中国和世界经济的持久发展和繁荣做出自己的贡献。最后，预祝本次论坛取得圆满成功，谢谢大家。
Thank you very much, Dr. Zhang Wei. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, this year, the World Chinese Economic Forum has created a new award, the World Chinese Economic Forum Patrons Special Leadership Award, which is based on the Confucian values of benevolence and righteousness, which will be conferred for the first time ever on its inaugural recipient. Without further ado, may I invite our patron, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, to introduce the award.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the ideas of the first ever the Patrons Award of Benevolence. Since this is a World Chinese Economic Forum, the forum pledged to appreciate those who have made important impacts for the better, impact that have benefited the Chinese community in the whole world. This award, therefore, is one of that will present to a non-Chinese to mark the person's extraordinary effort in creating goodness without considering border or races. The idea of benevolence comes from the central thought of Confucianism, a value that is universal, the value that is so important in governing ourselves as a human beings, and in governing ourselves to become a righteous person in our daily dealing. The recipient of this award will be presented with a special and extremely precious handcrafted vase by a renowned artist in China. This vase represents the spirit of the World Chinese Economic Forum in its brightest color of yellow. And the hand-painted roaster is metaphor of ancient Chinese saying of 一唱天下明, which means when the roaster sings, the sun's rise, the world becomes brightest. When people are benevolent, the world harmonizes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew. May I now invite Tan Sri Michael Yeoh to introduce the recipient of the award.
Governor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's our great honor and pleasure from the World Chinese Economic Forum to announce that the inaugural recipient of the Patron Special Award is our Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Right Honourable Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. Since becoming the Chief Minister of the State of Johor, Tan Sri Muhyiddin has been working very closely and supporting the work and activities of the Chinese community in the state of Johor, and also in his very many ministerial portfolios in the Ministry of International Trade and Industry. He has supported the activities of the Chinese business community in Malaysia, and as Minister of Education, he has now been playing a very important role in supporting Chinese education in Malaysia. For his support and contributions to the Chinese community, the World Chinese Economic Forum is pleased to present the Patron Special Award to the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Right Honourable Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. May I invite His Excellency Alex Shenoff, Governor of Victoria, accompanied by the patron, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, to do the honours of presenting this award to the Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, and Tan Sri Michael Yeoh. At the World Chinese Economic Forum, we honor distinguished men and women who have contributed substantially and significantly to their communities, countries, and society, as well as to the betterment of relations with China. This year, the 4th World Chinese Economic Forum is proud to honor 9 distinguished men and women for their exceptional service and who are deserving of being conferred the World Chinese Economic Forum Lifetime Achievement Awards. May I now invite the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, the Governor of Victoria, Alex Chernoff, Tan Sri Michael Yeo, and Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew to please come forward. May I also invite our first recipient, Dr. Jonathan Choi, to please come on stage. Dr. Jonathan Choi, who has served as chairman of the Hong Kong Chinese General Chamber of Commerce for 4 years, is a member of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, China's highest advisory body equivalent to the Senate or upper house of parliament. Dr. Jonathan Choi is also a standing committee member of the All China Federation of Industry and Commerce, economic advisor to the president of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and executive director of the China Overseas Friendship Association. Dr. Jonathan Choi is also chairman of the Sunhua Group, the Toronto-listed Sunhua International Limited, and the Hong Kong-listed Sunhua Kingsway Capital Group. Sunhua has businesses in food, real estate, financial services, technology, media, and infrastructure with activities in China, Macau, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, Singapore, Japan, Canada, the United States of America, and of course, Australia. Today, we honor Dr. Jonathan Choi with the Lifetime Achievement Award for Business and Community Leadership. May I invite the Governor of Victoria, His Excellency Alex Chernoff, to do the honor. Thank you. Dr. Jonathan, would you please remain on stage at the rear of the stage, please? Thank you. Next, may I invite Mr. Tan Kun Swan. Mr. Tan Kun Swan, who was a former president of the Malaysian Chinese Association, grew up in abject poverty and he had a rags to riches successes story. Mr. Tan Kun Swan started work as a clerk. He worked in Esso Malaysia before being invited by the founder of the Genting Group to be the general manager of the Genting Highlands Resort. Mr. Tan was later invited to lead the Multi-Purpose Holdings Group in Malaysia, which has strategic stakes in plantations, property development, banking and finance, insurance, trading and manufacturing, to gaming and shipping. Multi-Purpose Holdings was intended to be an economic catalyst to modernize, corporatize, and internationalize traditional Chinese family businesses in Malaysia. Mr. Tan led the democratic reform movement in the MCA in the 80s. Today, we honor Mr. Tan Kun Swan with the Lifetime Achievement Award for Business and Political Leadership. Thank you. May I now invite Datuk Dr. Jenny Chan. Dato Dr. Jenny Chan is the businesswoman whose achievements are recognized in Singapore and around the world. She graduated from Monash University and co-founded The Hourglass, a leading regional watch retailer in Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong, Japan, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. In 2009, Jenny was the first woman to win the Enterprise Asia Woman of the Year award. Dato Jenny Chan is a member of the Women's Leadership Initiative Board of the John Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University. She is also the first woman executive board member of the Commonwealth Business Council and the first woman president of the Singapore Retailers Association and the ASEAN Business Forum. She was named in Paris as one of the 50 leading women entrepreneurs by the world. Her passion for wellness and the environment led her to setting up the Save Our Planet investments. Today, we honor Dr. Jenny Chan with the Lifetime Achievement Award for Women Leadership. Thank you. May I now please invite Tan Sri Liu Ki Sin. Tan Sri Liu Ki Sin is a prominent property developer, starting his career in merchant banking before venturing into property development. Today, he is president and CEO of SP Setia Group, one of Malaysia's foremost property developers. SP Setia undertakes property development projects here in Melbourne, in China, Vietnam, and recently in London, where they have successfully bidded for the redevelopment of the iconic Battersea's power station in London. SP Setia is also very much into charity and philanthropic activities through the SP Setia Foundation. Tan Sri Liu was named by Asia Money magazine as Corporate Executive of the Year in 2005 and was named Property Man of the Year in 2007 in recognition of his contribution to the real estate industry. Today, we honor Tan Sri Liu Ki Sin with the Lifetime Achievement Award for Property and Philanthropic Leadership. Thank you. May I now invite Ms. Jenny McGregor? Jenny McGregor is the founder and CEO of Asia Link Centre in the University of Melbourne. She is a board member of the APAC Women's Business Advisory Committee, the Maya Foundation's Beyond Australia Community, the Dunlop Asia Funds, and the Melbourne Confucius Institute. Jenny is also a member of the Asia Link Task Force for an Asia-capable workforce. Under Jenny's leadership, Asia Link has become Australia's largest non-governmental centre for promotion of Australia-Asia relations, spanning education, healthcare, leadership, and the arts. Jenny has also been a champion, the study of Asian languages in Australian schools. Today, we honour Jenny McGregor with a Lifetime Achievement Award for Leadership in Asian Studies. Thank you. May I now invite Councillor Ken Ong. Councillor Ken Ong has been a Melbourne businessman and community volunteer for more than 25 years. He has recently been re-elected as a Melbourne City Councillor. Councillor Ken Ong is the future Melbourne's Planning Community Chair and Deputy Chair of the Finance and Governance Committee of the Melbourne City Council. Ken is a life member and former president of the Chinese Association of Victoria. Ken was previously chairperson of the Chinese New Year Festival Committee and is inward of the Australian Chinese Events Community. Today, we honor Councillor Ken Ong with the Lifetime Achievement Award for Community Leadership. Thank you. May I now invite Dato' Vincent Lee Phuc Long. Dato' Vincent Lee is an eminent media personality in Malaysia and regarded as one of the country's best brand builders, being the brain behind the successes of many high-profile and notable brands in the market. Dato' Vincent Lee is the founder of the Naga DDB, the largest advertising and communications agency in Malaysia under the umbrella of Fortis International. At present, Dato' Lee is the Executive Deputy Chairman of the Star Group, Malaysia's foremost media group with publication of the country's leading English newspaper, The Star. Dato' Lee was the president of the Association of Advertising Agent Malaysia and past chairman of the Audit Bureau of Circulations, ABC. He is also a member of the Health Promotion Board and the National Film Development Corp. Today, we honor Dato' Vincent Lee with the Lifetime Achievement Award for Leadership in the Media Industry. Mr. Vincent Loh, who is one of the award recipients, will only be attending the closing ceremony, therefore he is not with us today. Another one of our recipients for this year is Professor Jimmy Chu, the very famous shoe brand owner, but unfortunately he will not be in Melbourne this year, and there will be a special award ceremony for him back in Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, may I please invite all our recipients for this morning to come forward for a group photography. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. May I please invite all the award recipients to please be seated, but may I have all the dignitaries on stage to please remain on stage and to remain standing as well. Thank you very much. May I now invite former Governor General Michael Jeffrey, Dr. Chang Wei, Governor of Victoria Alex Chernoff, Tan Sri Michael, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, Ambassador of China, and Datuk Sri Dr. Chow Salet to please come forward as we have a small ceremony to go. May I now invite Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, to present mementos to our sponsors. May I invite Yang Berbahagia Datuk Syed Muhammad Said Ibrahim, President and Chief Executive Officer of Iskandar Investment Berhad, for their support as a strategic partner at the 4th World Chinese Economic Forum. Thank you. Datuk Syed, if you could also please remain on stage. Next, may I please invite Tan Sri Razali Ismail, the Chairman of the Global Movement of Moderates Foundation, Malaysia, as a strategic partner. Thank you. May I now invite once again Tan Sri Datuk Sri Liew Kee Sin, the President and Chief Executive Officer of SP Setia Berhad Group, as our strategic partner. Thank you. May I now invite Tan Sri Dr. Fong Chan On, representative from the Malaysia Chinese Association, as a strategic partner. Thank you. Last but not least, may I invite Ms. Victoria Pope, representing MCVB, the Melbourne Convention and Visitings Bureau. QI Group of Companies is among one of our strategic partners for this year, but unfortunately there will be no representative this year. Thank you. Can we do a group photography, please? Thank you very much to all our strategic partners for their contribution to the 4th World Chinese Economic Forum. Thank you. May I now invite our corporate partners to come on stage. To begin with, may I invite Datuk Jabasingham Isaac John, the Chief Executive Officer of the East Coast Economic Region Development Council of Malaysia. May I invite Councillor Ken Ong to represent the City of Melbourne. May I invite Councillor Ken Ong? Thank you. May I now invite Daniel, representing the Asian Pacific Group, as a corporate partner. Thank you. Last but not least, may I invite Ms. Diana Lee, representing the Riverside Group of China. Thank you. Can we have a group photography, please? Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. Without further ado, may I now invite the advisor of the World Chinese Economic Forum, Datuk Sri Dr. Chua Soy Lek, President of the Malaysian Chinese Association and former Minister of Health Malaysia, to deliver the vote of thanks.
A very good morning, 大家早上好. His Excellency, the Honorable Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, His Excellency Alex Chernoff, the Governor of Victoria, the former Governor-General of Australia and Chairman of the Global Foundation, Major General Michael Jeffrey, Tan Sri Michael Yeo, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, Dr. Cheng Wen, the first Vice Chairman of China Council for the Promotion of International Trade, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, my work is very simple. That's to show appreciation and to say a big thank you to all that have contributed directly and indirectly to make this conference possible and hopefully a success. Thank you to all the ladies and gentlemen. Looking back, we can see that as a platform for exchange and interaction, the World Chinese Economic Forum has indeed experienced remarkable growth and evolution. The first World Chinese Economic Forum took place in 2009, and the theme for that inaugural forum included the phrase, building business linkages and charting new frontier. These clearly reflected our core focus, which was and still is the amazing unexplored potential of the linkages between China and her neighbors in Southeast Asia, India, Australia, and the Middle East. 4 years down the road, we are happy to see that the World Chinese Economic Forum has truly taken flight and grown from strength to strength. And we're delighted to share with you that the Forum has received a strong support from the Federal Government of Australia, the State Government of Victoria. The Governor of Victoria, His Excellency Alex Chernoff, came to the Forum in Malaysia last year and welcomed the Forum to Melbourne this year. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Australian Government, the State Government of Victoria, the Governor of Victoria, His Excellency Alex Chernoff, for inviting us to hold our first Chinese Economic Forum abroad. Besides encouraging support from the host government aside, we are bringing the forum to Australia because we see Australia with its vast natural resources, rapid economic growth, and substantial Chinese population should be roped in to the Economic Forum to join this economic growth corridor. And we are glad to note that Australia, in the Asian Century White Paper, which was recently been released by the Australian government, emphasized it's important to maximize its linkages with China and other Asian economies to become the top wealthiest nation in the world. and Australia sees a growth in Asia as an opportunity rather than as a threat. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we decided to come to Melbourne, we feel that today we have made the right choice. Now, I know that all of you are keen to get started, so I would like to take time to thank those who have contributed to make this event possible. His Excellency, the Right Honourable Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, despite his heavy schedule and an impending general election in Malaysia, has also consented to take time off to be with us this morning. Thank you, Tan Sri. His Excellency, Alex Chernoff, who will be hosting a reception tonight. Thank you, Excellency. Tan Sri Michael Yeo, Dr. Cheng Wen, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, and in fact it is an honor to have all the distinguished guests to be part of this opening ceremony, including His Excellency, the Premier of Victoria. Thank you also to all the speakers, and we are fortunate to have a very impressive collection of accomplished and experienced speakers who I'm sure will make this forum memorable. And to our sponsor, thank you for your generous support. And to members of the media, thank you for your effort, not just in reporting about the forum, but I'm sure adding your invaluable analysis on the discussion. And to all the organizers and to those who have worked tirelessly behind the scene to make this event possible, congratulations on the job well done, and our heartfelt gratitude to all your effort. And finally, to all the participants, thank you for being with us for these 2 days. I know some of you have traveled great distances to be with us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this forum will prove to be exciting, memorable, and a valuable experience to all of us. And let us not forget to enjoy beautiful Melbourne, which is often voted as one of the world's most livable cities. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Datuk Sri Dr. Chor Sailet, for the vote of thanks. May I now invite the patron of the World Chinese Economic Forum, Tan Sri Lee Kim Yew, to present a memento to our distinguished guests of honours this morning, beginning from the Governor of Victoria, followed by the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia. May I also invite all the dignitaries seated on stage to please come forward for the group photography. Thank you very much to Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia for gracing the occasion this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain on stage while I invite all our strategic partners and corporate partners to please go on stage for a ribbon cutting ceremony. May I also invite Michael Jeffrey, Dr. Zhang Wei, Ambassador of China, and everyone on stage to join the ribbon cutting ceremony. Thank you. May I invite all corporate partners and strategic partners. Thank you very much. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to an end for the opening ceremony for the 4th World Chinese Economic Forum. May I now invite members of the media to proceed to room 203 for a press conference. And ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, enjoy your very brief morning tea as we need to commence the next session within the next 10 minutes. Thank you.